Welcome everybody to Power at the Podcast. It's been years, literally years, since I've done a podcast, and I couldn't be more excited for the first guest of me doing this podcast again. Is with artists that we just had an art exhibit for a solo show, Diane Vera
Ureño.
Diane Vera Ureño. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and excited to be the first one coming back.
Right? There's a lot of firsts, in the passing first month of the year, which just left, a few days ago, and now we're in February, and our show was January 25th, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, and the funny thing about that is that we met literally in December, right? Was it
Yeah.
December or
Think it was
November?
November. It
Was it
was
November?
November.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
it was like Thanksgiving time, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, and talk about talk about what you were doing there and how we met and what the context was.
Oh, sure. So I was part of this series of artists with oh my gosh, it's funny when you draw a blank right when you ask a question. But it's art science murals. They're a group the title name is Art Bio, they're art science murals. And so they bring their funding here to the El Paso area, and their mission is to teach science processes through art. And so there was about five artists that we each did a mural, and then I got to create public programming for each mural. So when we met, I was doing the public programming for Tino's mural underneath the
That's
bridge.
Tino Ortega,
Tino
right?
Ortega,
Yes.
yeah. So he did a beautiful mural on one of the pillars, and so I was in doing the public engagement, and that's how we met. So we had a good conversation, and then yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I when we had the meeting with Daniela and your cousin at Giovanni Bronson's to talk about the show and the art crawl. Daniela asked you how we met, and
Yeah.
literally we're like in the streets. I mean, like that's how you meet Valentine. Streets. It's not an official, thing. It's not a notarized thing. We met in Lincoln Park, Chicano Park of El Paso.
That's the best way to meet people sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so yeah, so we immediately talked and hit it off. I dug what you were doing. I dug, I appreciated your energy, and I also knew the organizers of the show from way back when we were not the show, but the mural project when we were at UTEP, and it was really refreshing to see that they were focusing on highlighting the ecosystem of the Chihuahuan Desert and the life that is prevalent, because most times we just look at it on the surface and we think dry, arid, barren. Used to be, 30,000 years ago was very lush, and now, but it couldn't be quite the opposite. And that's really great that your art is a vehicle for that communication to community and consciousness. So that was really cool.
Oh yeah, it was a really fun project. Though the mural that I did was at Vista del Sol Elementary. So I was working alongside like the kids going to class, and since I when I approach something I have to like study it. So I really studied like the desert plants. So when the kids are asking me questions, it was very interactive. So it was a really, really great experience to be a part of.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. And that's what we just had on my end. I hadn't done a show in years, like maybe Spring Your Art with a few 2 years ago, two and a half, and this was like like right after COVID. And the reason why is just because the focus of the space has been different. We started off with a lot of shows throughout the years, 6, 7 years ago, and sort of introducing the visionaries to a different audience, and then they bringing a different audience to us, and so it was this mutual thing that I appreciate. It was really fun, um, but it's also time consuming, and it's also business in and of itself. And oftentimes events are coupled with people want to drink, want to chill out, and we don't have that's not our the licensing, or rather the layout of the function of the building. It's been more, now the focus is, it's always been content creation and marketing and filmmaking, the visual arts, but only now it's a little bit more technology driven, with Richie being here in this podcast room. Now we have this really awesome space, and then we have off kind of studios, and so like the focus went elsewhere, and now and then, but so it just made a lot of sense to me, and I followed my intuition when I met you and I talked to you, and you were about it, and just because I think you had just left your teaching job of how many years?
14.
14 years, and before retirement, you how many years before retirement?
Oh, I think I still have like 15 if I were to go
Yeah,
back.
have stated
Yeah.
for the retirement. And so for me, that was a very courageous move because most people, will look at getting to retirement like a prison sentence. How much time you got left. And it's like 5 years, 10 years, damn. And not a lot of time, but it is a lot of time. It is a long time. Every day counts. With that being said, I respected your move to leave at a pivotal point. And for me, I kind of thought about the word entrepreneur. You became an entrepreneur. It's like you just went at it. And so, what spawned that?
Um, there's a lot of things that spawned it, but I guess to summarize it, I just think if not now, then when? And like you said, I didn't want it to be a sentence. And I had a really great career. And I don't think my art education or being a teacher is over. I just think it needed to change directions. And I loved being in the classroom. I love my students. And of course, you can't sugarcoat all of the things that are going on in education and after COVID and all of the things that you hear in the news, like, yes, they're there and they happen. But being a teacher, I wanted to like fully everything I do, I try to do it like 100%. And for a long time, I was able to balance my art career and my education career. And then I felt like the education was getting a little heavier, and I wasn't being true as an artist. And how can I be a true art educator if I'm not being true to the artist self of me? So, in a nutshell, with all of those things, that was just kind of what pushed me forward. And like I said, if not now, then when? You know, life is too long to be waiting for things, and it's also too short to not jump in sometimes.
Absolutely. So that being said, like talk about your background in terms of your El Paso background in high school and what led you to go to UTEP to study art. Like talk about that.
Sure. So I kind of have like an interesting story. I think I always take a little longer to get to where I'm going. But when I was in high school, I actually went to Eastwood High School. Um, I didn't take art. I took band.
Apparently, there's I'm in a room with three troopers. Richie, Olivia, and Diane are both Eastwood troopers. I was a Bel Air Highlander. I did Eastwood as well. I did 4 or 5 other high schools. Different podcasts. Sorry,
Nice.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. So I was in band and I never took art. And all in grade school, I never took art, but my family's very crafty. My uncle's actually an artist. But I think it was just kind of like over there, like I was interested, but I didn't like dive into it. And then when I got to college, I was like, I'm gonna try art. I took an art class and I dropped it after like 2 weeks. I was like, I don't belong here. Everybody's amazing. I'm not gonna do this. So then I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went into education, wasn't really feeling it, and I took an art class again, like the end of my sophomore year. Fell in love with it. And I looked at the old stuff from the first time around and I was like, they're not that bad. Like I can do this. Took a bunch of art classes, and then like the end of my junior year, my advisor was like, why don't you do art education? And I felt like I was like, oh, like little Scooby, like what? Like you could, and so after that, like the path was pretty clear. And then right out of college, I worked as the outreach coordinator at the El Paso Museum of Art. I wasn't sure, like I felt like I was still a little immature and young to be teaching. I just felt it was such a big responsibility, and I
How
wasn't sure.
how old were you?
I was like 23, 24. And then the position opened up at Eastwood, and I applied for it, and I was happy at the museum. I didn't think it was that big of a deal to, if I didn't get the job, I was happy at the museum. But if I got the job and if I were to become a teacher, Eastwood would be a great place because that was my alma mater. So they ended up hiring me on Friday before school started. So I had like only the weekend to like shift into being a teacher. And then at the art museum, like I still had a bunch of stuff there. So I worked both jobs for like the first 2 weeks of being a teacher. And then I was there ever since. It was a great experience being a teacher, and being able to give back to my alma mater. And also because I didn't get trained in high school as an artist, like it was fun being a teacher and like, hey, look at it. Like you're getting this now. You don't have to wait till college. Like, look at it. So
And so you didn't paint or when you were younger prior to
I
that
oh
or
yeah, I've always like drawing and doodling and a lot of crafty things. I feel like my strength is in creativity, And then the technical stuff, and I think that's what kind of helped me be a better teacher is the technical stuff, and I'm doing like the quotation stuff, but is a lot of people feel like to be an artist, you have to like naturally be artistically talented. And I think I'm naturally creatively talented, but technique wise, I need to work at it just like you would as an athlete. You can be a natural athlete, but you still have to exercise and work, or you're not a natural athlete, but you can get there if you exercise and work. So I think art, it can be approached in the same way. So um
Yeah, I appreciate that. I completely agree with you. I think what do they say? Either you have or you don't.
mhm.
I mean, there's truth to that, but at
Yeah.
the same time, you can certainly develop and harness skill sets.
Yeah.
That's
And,
really what it's about.
and I really feel being a teacher and having to digest the basics in order to teach my students really helped me grow as an artist. And then going back to UTEP and getting my master's in art education and really just pushing myself in the studio. So I was saying, like, I always get to things a little bit later, but or take a long route. And I think it wasn't until then, like in my master's program, where I just was really learning how to be an artist, and really fell in love with art again.
Okay. So, who are some of your, as I'm getting to know your style, like who are some of your influences and artists that you love, that inspired you, that intrigued you, that
That's such a good question, and I get asked all the time, and I really feel like it depends on when you ask me, depends on what I'm looking at the time. Some of my favorite artists, like locally, is like Francisco Delgado. I think he's such an inspiration. Um, and I don't think my artwork necessarily reflects that I admire him, but I just admire what he does with his pieces and how hard he works, and that he's also a full-time teacher and really pushes his art career.
why awakenings? What's up with the name, the title?
Um, that was such a great word. I was trying to think of in my life right now, like it's just like this big shift, like we were talking about earlier. You don't really hear about people just like, leaving like a long-standing career in the middle of their life, I guess. And I feel like kind of like a I don't want to say a rebirth, but like, you know, after you've done all your work for a hard day and you go to sleep and then you wake up and do it again, right? And sometimes you wake up good, sometimes you wake up a little groggy and stuff like that, and just kind of having this title of like, I don't feel like I'm starting over, but I do feel like there's like a freshness to it, to my life and what I'm doing, and I am having to rebuild or build on top of things, and I just felt like Awakenings was the perfect title to like encompass that, like, not like as an artist, as a teacher, as a person, just, you know breathing life back into myself. And I like yoga, and one of the things in yoga is after you do your entire yoga practice, you lay down and you do shavasana, and it's kind of like to signify like the death of your practice. And then when you after that you kind of sit up and you just concentrate on your breathing, and it's to breathe life back into your body, and then you go back to what you were doing. And I just felt Awakenings was just the perfect word to describe this stage in my life, and also in my artwork too. So with my artwork, I wanted to look, I'm not starting over, but starting like this journey, and I didn't know where I was going, and so I wanted to look back at where I had been to see where I'm going. And so that was also kind of encompassing like dusting off these old pieces, awakening them up. And there was this artist that I met, and I meant to look up his name, and I will look up his name because I have it written in my sketchbook. But he influenced me like way back when my first year teaching. I decided to go to this printmaking class in Vermillion, South Dakota. And one of the artists there, one of the featured artists, he did an artist talk, and he was a little like in his mid 30s or so. I was in my 20s when I met him, and he said that his mom had given him a box of stuff from the attic. And she's like, take your stuff home. And so he went through it, and it was like detention slips, his like science notes, like all of these things from when he was a kid, but it had all these doodles and drawings and stuff like that. And it was like a time capsule from when he was a teenager. And so he took all of that work and he turned it into like giant screens, reworked it, worked on top, and he called it a collaboration with his younger self. So I really like that artist. I've always really enjoyed like that idea. And so kind of doing these like full circle moments of like I saw that artist my first year teaching. I quit teaching. Here I am looking through all my work from when I first started and just kind of being like, huh, it's time. Like it feels good. It's time. Let me work on top of some of these pieces. And so again, that just kind of went with the title Awakenings. Like, let me get these pieces and awaken them and see what's up, what's next.
I noticed the your color choice is very monochromatic.
Hmm.
Like what can you talk about your reasoning and logic on choice and stuff?
Sure, sure. So I think early on as an artist, I just really liked the aesthetic of like black and white and being able to just really mark movement and mark making. And with a lot of colors, you see that, but it kind of becomes about the colors and not so much the energy. And you kind of just take everything out and you just look at the black and white. Um, and which is it's a good question. It's interesting that you asked me that because that was the beginning of my career. And I would say in the last 5 years or so, I got into like murals and mural making and painting. And when you see my murals, they're like super, you know, colorful. And so that was a good question because when I'm looking at my old stuff, looking at my recent stuff, and doing this full circle awakenings type of thing, I really struggled with awakening these black and white pieces, and I didn't want to be untrue and color them, but I did want to add like an element of color. So you can see that in some of the works, some of the black and white works that were awakened, they're just black, white, and then I added a gold to it. And then some other ones I was like, no, we need to add this color. They're like hot pink and hot blue and gold. So yeah, that was a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate the art. It has, yeah, it seems to like, get to the core of it, the feeling. I mean, it's like it stands out and it pops, and because of the color usage, that was I really appreciated that. That I like the concept that you were talking about with a teacher. I mean, with this teacher that taught you way back when. I like when we had my friend, real estate person, Noel Moreno, that has the motel, La
Hmm.
Verde Motel down here with all the murals, and hopefully
Uh-huh.
you get to do something with
Yeah,
him
yeah, I
on
would
that.
love to.
You had mentioned how you were painting with your younger self. I mean,
Yeah.
you were kind of alluding to that,
Uh-huh.
right? But can you
Yes.
can you expound on that?
Sure. So like I have these pieces and they're from, like 10, 15 years ago, and it's kind of it was really refreshing to see like the energy in them, and life happens, we get older and our energy starts to dissipate a little bit, and then I'm like, but when you hang out with young people, you're like, "Oh yeah, let's do this." And so like it was like hanging out with my younger self and like remembering like why I love art, why I love mark making. And not that I lost it, but like I said, education and being an artist, for me the journey was getting a little harder to do both. And so at this point where I'm like trying to pull back, not pull back, but really authenticate my artist self again, it was just cool to have like my younger self like, hey, remember this, remember how fun this is, and you can still do it.
So you do believe in time travel?
Maybe a little.
So talk about the homeless portion of your
Oh, sure.
exhibit. Yes, yeah, that was that a lot of people talked about that. It was
So
captivating.
that I did that project a couple of years ago, and it's one of my favorite series that I really feel grateful that I had the opportunity to do. Um, so a little bit of background: there used to be this group called the Caldo Collective, and you would apply to be an artist, and then they would have a dinner, and then you would present your idea, and then you'd go inside, and then whoever was at the dinner would vote which artist would receive like the pot of gold that was donated that night at the end of dinner. So was super lucky to be chosen as one of the artists. And so I got to bring this project to life. And what it was is it was just a community based project where I would interview people who were in different experiences of homelessness. And I just give them a platform for their story. Um, and then if they wanted to, they would give me a piece of their clothing, and I would always have some sort of donation, or not donation, but an exchange for giving me their time. It would be like shirts or clothes or whatever they wanted. I just had like some things that were available, and it was a really cool project because that year, like my students got into it, my family, my friends, my the staff at the school. Like it really felt like community driven. And so I would interview, I've interviewed, I don't know, maybe like 20, 25 people or so. I went to the opportunity center. I went out in the streets. Like I had, there was a coworker who had actually experienced a homelessness for a chunk of his life, and he was on the end of, not on the end of it. He was able to redirect his life in a very positive, good way, and so he was a big part of that project. And so at the end of all of these interviews, I created artwork based off of their stories, and I screen printed the stories onto their shirts instead of like on paper or anything like that. It was on their shirts, and those were the actual art pieces that were hung in the different spaces that they were invited to be. And then I donated all of the artwork to the opportunity center, so and then they used that as like a teaching tool for a little bit. And so here at the gallery space at Power at the Past, when I was going through some of my previous work, I had forgotten that I had done like a backup screen print on some paper of the images, because I wasn't sure where the project was going to go, or how it was going to be.
That
So
was a table, guys.
it's like, dun, dinner's ready. So I wasn't sure how, I had, I guess a younger self was prepared for older self to that I was gonna eventually let, because the idea of Seed of Benevolence was to plant the seed, plant benevolence like hope, to plant the seed, do the project, and let it grow to whatever it would grow, right? And it was kind of like that pay it forward type of idea. And so I knew that the artwork was going to travel and not be like so much my possession or mine anymore, because it was like a community thing. So when I found the screen prints that I had like left kind of just as documentation for myself, that's what I installed here at Power at the Past. And it was really cool to see that up again, and to really remember like the impact of that. And I feel very inspired to like try and follow some of the stories again, and some of the people that were a part of it. So I don't know, that might be
Yeah,
something
yeah,
in the
absolutely.
future, because there are a few people that I was able to see again, and some of the stories were very positive, and some of them, were unfortunate. And but I think it's still important to like honor the stories of the people, if I can.
Absolutely.
Saw
How
about the
cool was
battery.
it that?
I'm just gonna saw about the battery really quick.
Okay, stop that. Pause there.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I keep
yeah.
like
No.
fidgeting
Keep that question though.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, because
I
I
just
want
wanted to
to
take this off.
really quick.
Ears. Is it hurting your ears?
No,
No,
I'm
no, you're
okay.
kind of a little tight on mine, I think.
I know, I keep getting
Huge head. That's why.
some drumsticks.
Yeah, we're filming again.
Okay. So how cool was it that we were able to get a party bus, your cousin's party bus, to do the art crawl that was synonymous with El Paso last Thursdays, right? And
Yes.
in this case, it was so apropos for us to get involved again in the art game in a certain way, and with you, the perfect artist for that reintroduction, and it makes a bold statement, and then a couple of that we were able to, through your cousin's idea of having his party bus take artists from part of the past over to Desert Mystic Gabriel.
Marcus.
I did the same thing you did.
Yeah.
I know him very well. He's a good friend.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Gabriel Marquez in his new spot right next to Old Sheepdog in
Yes.
the Lincoln Park area where we met, and then over to Daniela Lastra's the fall staff, and just combine all three where you kind of do something to diffuse and to just circumnavigate the competitiveness of art galleries, and the different strata of that. I think we were able to do a very cool thing with bridging that. Think about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I've um I've been to art crawls in other cities, and I feel sometimes in our city, in our culture, we're like, well, how come we don't have that? We don't do this. And it's like, I'm somebody. I like, so when you say somebody should do this, well, I'm somebody. Let's do it. And it just happened that my brother-in-law, he's just up and coming with his party bus business, and we did a Christmas lights tour in December. It was super successful, so much fun. And it's a party bus. Like, who does not have fun on a party bus? And I also, This past summer, there were some really great art openings, and they're all on the last Thursday. And I felt like I would drive to one, I would park, and I would like run through it, and then jump in the car, drive to the next one, run through it because I wanted to hit them all. And it was hard to like enjoy. It wasn't hard to enjoy the experience, but I was just thinking like, if other cities can have an art crawl like that, why can't we? And so it's just all the stars aligned. Party bus, Power at the Pass, Awakenings, and I thought it was really great that the other galleries were just really open to the idea and let's just try it. Why not? So the party bus would circle through the three galleries. You hop on and off as many times as you wanted. It's like a 5-minute ride on the bus. There was like good music, and then you just park once. So that's great.
Yeah, yeah. And I even think that I don't think any I mean not that I'm sure the
Mhm.
cities have done it, but they have tour buses or two,
Mhm.
but not party
Yeah, I
buses.
don't
I
think
mean
I've.
I've lived in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Manhattan, Austin, and I never experienced it. I mean maybe it was there and I just wasn't
Yeah,
aware of it.
yeah.
I like to think that it was us pioneering that and
I think
let the other
so.
cities
I would like to
copy that.
take that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
This is for the sake of
Uh-huh.
this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's in store for you as an artist? What does the future have in store?
That's a good question. I have no idea and I have 1,000 ideas. So
Damn, even better answer.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think I think just like you said, it was pretty scary, and I like the idea that you think I'm bold for quitting my teaching career. Um
it's not an idea. It was an idea that
uh-huh.
was made manifest.
Yeah, yeah, but if you acknowledge it's bold, then you have to be intimidated. So I'm just pretending. But I think just in the spirit of that, of just being bold and taking jump leaps and decisions, is I've just been applying to a bunch of different things, just making a bunch of work and just kind of seeing I don't know, I guess I like seeds, just throwing a bunch of seeds and seeing what grows and what sticks and what feels good. And I feel since I've left the classroom, I've been very fortunate in the things that have pulled me in their direction, and they've been really great experiences. And although I don't know what's next, I'm super excited and can't wait.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Yeah, you got this. Yeah, I want to go ahead and close off our podcast here. I enjoyed every moment of this. It was great. Congratulations on your life's work as an artist and your life's choices and to be doing what you're doing now and want to continue success and growth and expansion and inspiration and life. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so great to be here and be a part of the space. And thanks, Richie, for hosting us. And it's been a good time. We can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you, Olivia, for helping us out as our intern. Yes. Okay, cool. Awesome, guys. Signing off. Peace.
Bye.